The Toronto Raptors have just signed a very athletic center that has over a 7'6" wingspan. So Bobby Webster is doubling down on the defensive intensity, guys that can come in and have an immediate impact on the defensive end of the floor, with all of the newcomers coming to the Toronto Raptors in terms of this year's rookie class and people that have the opportunity to get some of those final roster spots. This team is moving in a very, very new direction, and now with the signing of Clifford Omoruyi, this team has some direction, and we have some knowledge, some insight in terms of who's going to be competing for that backup center position, assuming no more trades end up going down. So we're going to break down this signing of Clifford Omoruyi, how he impacts the Toronto Raptors going forward, and frankly, what we should expect from the internal competition at that backup center position for this offseason. So lots of stuff to dive into, lots of stuff to discuss for this Toronto Raptors team. But of course, as I've been mentioning, and I've recorded a couple videos here, but 38,000 people have joined this Raptors Digest community as we march closer and closer to that 40K goal. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you just haven't already, because I don't want you to miss a single thing happening with this team. And frankly, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of madness, a lot of craziness happening with this Toronto Raptors group. So let's dive into it, because there's been so much news over the weekend. This move happened a couple days ago, and I never got a chance to break it down. But news basically came out that the Toronto Raptors are signing Clifford Omoruyi, a big man out of Alabama, is signing a deal with the Toronto Raptors, league sources have told The Athletic. Now, Clifford Omoruyi is a very, very intriguing prospect in terms of his intangibles, size, length, and what you're hoping for out there on the defensive end, because the Raptors need someone at that center position. We have Jakob Poeltl and then a lot of question marks. So let's dive into who this man is as a basketball player. So Clifford Omoruyi, 6'11", 240 pounds, and has a 7'6" wingspan. He's from Nigeria, and he is 23 years old. That is one thing to bring up. So he's a little bit older for one of these prospects, and had an interesting season last year in terms of stats, because the box score wise, he ended up having a lot less of an impact comparative to his seasons at Rutgers in previous years, where last season averaged 2.9, or like the season before last averaged 2.9 blocks per night, along with 10 points, as well as close to over 8 rebounds per game. This most recent season for Alabama averaged 8 points per game on a better squad, don't get me wrong, 1.1 blocks, and then 6.5 rebounds. So while his box score numbers did regress, he looked like he was a more mature player from everything I've read, from everything I've gathered, and frankly is a very, very intriguing piece that has some upside at the center spot. So what are people saying about him in terms of strengths and weaknesses? So he's an elite rebounder with a high motor. He's a guy that gets boards. He's a hustler. He's a strong shot blocker and paint protector. So rebounding, shot blocking, size, wingspan, it's all the things you'd expect from a raw, young big man coming up out there, among the ranks in the NBA. He's a physical interior defender with hustle, which is, of course, great to see, because sometimes you have all the intangibles in the world. You have length, you have size, you have athleticism, the same way a guy like DeAndre Ayton has it, but doesn't have that same hustle and energy out there on that side of the floor. So, he brings that energy, and he also finishes efficiently around the rim. So he doesn't have, bricks for hands or something, unable to catch the basketball and finish and stuff. So a guy that very much is your archetype of very athletic shot blocking, rebounding center that does need to polish his game, but all the upside, that how valuable that type of guy is in the modern NBA. But of course, not a perfect player, or else he would have been drafted. He has no perimeter shooting threat. You look at the stats, he has taken a couple at some points in his college career. Averaged 0.2 attempts per game for Rutgers in his previous season. Again, 32 games. That's not a high volume by any stretch of the imagination. Only shot 20%. In the season prior, 0.6% attempts, 0.6 attempts from three. But of course, for his most recent season, Alabama did not even take one 3-point shot. So don't expect him to come to the NBA and be a stretch big man. But limited offensive versatility, which is sometimes the case with these guys that, of course, are, lob threats. They dive to the rim, they hustle, they get boards. They're not that versatile in terms of looking like Nikola Jokic out there in the post. He's a poor free throw shooter early on in his career, and we can take a look at those stats, because if you want to play in big moments, you, of course, have to be able to hit your free throws, and you see 42% in his first season in college. That has improved, though. It has improved dramatically from that number to where it was 72% last season, so hopefully that will continue to develop, continue to improve over the course of his basketball career, and then he's not a go-to scoring option. Don't expect him to to come out and be that, even at any level, that number one or top scoring option out there for this team. He's a lob threat. He's one of those guys that could catch those buckets and stuff, but really his impact is felt in his rim presence, rim protection, and ability to rebound the basketball. So that is Clifford Omoruyi, a guy, how he summed up in terms of, what the Raptors are getting in this mix. He is signed to an Exhibit 10 contract, so there's no guarantees he'll be officially on the roster night one, but there is some competition for that backup center spot right now. And one name that I brought up in the most recent videos, but Ben Simmons, obviously averaged 5, 5, and 5. News came out that another name that might be out there is Ben Simmons. According to Michael Grange, broke down how he's an option for the Toronto Raptors. I think he'd be a very intriguing prospect at that center position for this team, so he's a name to factor in, but the most likely guy in terms of candidate for landing as the backup center for the Toronto Raptors, he's already signed to this team, and it's Ulrich Schamche, who is 4 years younger than Clifford Omoruyi. That's one thing to bring up. He is way younger, despite being in the NBA this most recent season. In the G League last year, averaged 8 points and 9 rebounds per night. And more importantly, in terms of where he really dominated that end of the court is, his traditional splits. The guy averaged, in terms of blocks per game, 3.1 blocks per game. He averaged 3.1 blocks per game. Again, shooting 50% for three on an extremely, extremely small volume, but has some potential as a three-point shooter. His free throw shooting is also pretty abysmal, so that's one thing to take into account, to factor in. But Ulrich Schamche is a guy that if everything comes together for him, he's taller than Omoruyi, he has longer wingspan, he is extremely, extremely fast. Like, you watch this man play, Ulrich Schamche, out there on the basketball court, you are just baffled by how a man that big has that amount of burst. I mean, diving back to Pascal Siakam's rookie season, there's some bigs the Toronto Raptors have had that showed some flashes of being able to run the floor. Of course, they were maximized when Kyle Lowry was on this team, who could throw that full court pass like the best of them. But Ulrich Schamche has that in his bag, and just if everything comes together for Schamche, I'd really love to see him get some run, get some opportunities as the backup center this year. But of course, he's a development project. Omoruyi is a bit more polished, a bit more has 5 years of college under his belt, where Ulrich Schamche is still getting a feel for the game despite his raw and intangible presence. So Omoruyi, I wouldn't be shocked if he has a really resounding impact on the Summer League team. If he's consistent, he's getting boards, he's blocking shots, he's doing all these types of things. He has a real opportunity to get one of those final roster spots for this Toronto Raptors group. Of course, there's going to be people fighting for those positions. Colin Castleton will be brought up. AJ Lawson will be brought up because they're signed to this team, but on non-guaranteed contracts. So Omoruyi would have to compete with those guys and prove that he'd be more valuable giving minutes to as a development project than an Ulrich Schamche. So Summer League, there's going to be some very competitive battles in terms of what's going on. I'm sure with an Exhibit 10 contract, to be playing in preseason, we'll have some opportunities over the course of the summer, but sometimes other guys stand out, like Jamison Battle. Wasn't expected to be out there in the mix of this Raptors team, but then had an outstanding Summer League. Was given those non-guaranteed deals, got guaranteed on a two-way, and then a full roster spot. So that's what happens with these guys. If they sound out, if they play really well, they have that opportunity. And he's a position of need. Bobby Webster needs one of those big men. So we'll see how things play out. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. You guys have the best thing as far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out.